change the truth. You just had to pick what parts of the story you were going to tell, right? So there's a whole beginning of the book where you get to see him as a young boy and see all of that. And then there's the actual story of what they went through. And then there's sort of later in life. And what was really interesting to us was the period of time that they were at the University of Washington and taking on sort of three different groups, taking on the seniors first and then taking on the rich, kind of fraternity kind of kids, and then taking on the Nazis. So we felt like that was a really exciting time to do. So we had to focus, got to understand what the ins and outs of the actual rowing entail, got to understand what speed is like by getting in closer. As opposed to being far back. When you're far back, nothing looks fast. So you could use that as your palette in a way to, that showed us some of the ways you have to care about the people who are rowing. But, rowing at the turn of the last century, particularly in the 1920s, was the number one watched sport, meaning attended sport in the United States. So there were 100,000 people at these things. So it was it has been very big sport, and it still is a big sport, but it's not as big as football and baseball and basketball. So it's just about trying to show the excitement and remind people of what something was and how exciting that was.
Here we go.
There's this element that what makes it so special is that they did it out of necessity. They're rowing because they wanted to stay in college, and that was the only way they could stay in college was during the Depression, and they were very poor. And these guys were lumberjacks and worked in, on the river, and they were strong, tough kids, but they were poor. And it gave them an edge because, if they lost or if they didn't make the team or if they didn't make the cut, they probably weren't going to get an education. They weren't going to get ahead. They weren't going to make a life for themselves and their families. So the stakes were much higher for them. And so it drives their story, and I think it drives our narrative too. It was really important for us to get rowing right, because that's something that you haven't really seen in movies. It's funny, but it hasn't been seen where you can see them all in exact, in the perfect form, with the swing, as they call it. And it's hard to get actors to do that, right? You have to really train for it. So the first thing we did when we cast the actors was we said, if you're not athletic, then we're going to have to let you go. And we don't want to do that. So, let's have an honest discussion of whether or not you guys can do that. It was hard. It's a hard gig. Because, when we go out to shoot, when these guys row in a race, they row for, 10 minutes. And when they train for a couple of hours out on the water. We're shooting for 11 hours a day, and they got to be out there rowing. So it's a really physically demanding part for all these guys. They all lost a ton of weight, and they all look great.
We had coaches that were training them. They were doing 2 sessions a day, morning sessions and afternoon sessions. They were doing weight training and cardio, and it was as if they were training to be rowers on a college team. And to their credit,
and to their trainers' credit.
To the trainers' credit, of course. About 4 weeks later, we went back out there, and they were rowing. They were rowing as a team. And then as we started shooting, they kept practicing.
Yeah, we had to, they would finish shooting and they would have to go practice because there's a lot of the movie that isn't on the water. So we'd shoot and go, get out, go rowing. But it worked for us because by the time we got to that final race, which we sort of shot in order, so by the time we got to the race in Germany, our kids could keep up with. They couldn't beat any of the the professionals who were rowing alongside them, but they could stay in the game with them.
Because what you don't want to do is shoot a close up of their face and then cut to the wide shot and it's doubles, and we want to see that it's the boys.
Mm-hmm. The thing that was amazing about those guys, like the real guys, was that they, at the end of the race, got to 40, 42. That was just unheard of, to go that fast at that point in the race. Our kids could get sort of consistently and really at a good pace at 34 36, where you go, oh, they look like they're racing. Grant and I, all of us have done a military movie or two where it's like, okay, you're going to go train and spend time and learn. It always helps in some way, whatever way. And, the idea is you want to get to a place where if you're in a scene together that you don't have to look at the other one to know what they're doing. And there's that. So they were very confident of each other and comfortable with one another. And those matter. That makes a big difference.